Famous aviatrix Amelia Earhart was beginning a program of air research that ended with her mysterious disappearance in the Pacific.
It was a mystery that captivated the world for nearly a century. A name etched in history, a flight that vanished without a trace, and a legacy that sparked countless theories, documentaries, and expeditions. Amelia Earhart, the pioneering aviator who dared to challenge the skies, disappeared over the Pacific Ocean in 1937. Her plane, a Lockheed Model 10 Electra, was never found, or so it seemed. 88 years later, that mystery may finally have been solved. The discovery came not from a Hollywood dramatization or a sensational news leak, but from a meticulously planned and scientifically driven expedition. For decades, researchers, adventurers, and historians pored over clues, old radio transmissions, naval logs, eyewitness accounts, and scattered debris reports. Many believed Earhart's plane had crashed and sunk, while others speculated she had landed on a remote island or been captured. None of it ever led to hard evidence, until now. In 2025, a deep-sea exploration team working with a blend of cutting-edge underwater drones, sonar mapping, and AI-assisted navigation stumbled upon an anomaly buried under silt and coral more than 16,000 feet beneath the ocean surface. It was near Nikumaroro, the island long believed by many to be connected to Earhart's fate. As the remotely operated vehicle moved in closer, shapes began to emerge through the murky water, a twin-engine aircraft frame, remarkably intact, with design signatures matching the exact specifications of Earhart's Electra. The reaction was immediate. The world paused, astonished. Historians began cross-referencing every inch of the footage with original Lockheed schematics. Aviation experts confirmed the unique twin-tail design, the configuration of the engine mounts, the rivet patterns, all matched. But what truly sealed the confirmation was a partial serial number engraved on a landing gear strut, just visible under incrustations. That number corresponded with one of the components installed on Earhart's plane before her final journey. The implications of this find are profound. For over 8 decades, the story of Amelia Earhart had lived in a space between legend and reality. She was more than a pilot. She was a symbol of boldness, independence, and resilience. Her disappearance became one of the most enduring mysteries in modern history. The theories ranged from crash and sink to spy missions, island survival, and even alien abduction. Each theory was fueled by the vacuum of concrete evidence. That vacuum has now been filled. But how did she end up where she did? Why wasn't the wreckage discovered earlier, despite countless expeditions and millions of dollars invested in searches? The answer lies partly in the sheer vastness and complexity of the Pacific Ocean, and partly in the technology that simply wasn't available until recently. Early expeditions lacked precision mapping capabilities. Underwater vehicles were limited in depth and clarity. Even satellite imaging couldn't penetrate the dense ocean layers where her plane finally rested. It was only with the recent advancements in submersible AI, deep-sea LiDAR imaging, and machine learning-enhanced sonar that such a find became possible. The team that made the discovery had spent years developing a search algorithm that cross-referenced tidal patterns, flight path deviations, historical wind data, and drift models. They created a probability map that pointed to a much deeper region than previously explored. It wasn't where traditional models had predicted Earhart would crash, but the data suggested a minor navigational error that pushed her off course by just enough to miss her planned refueling stop at Howland Island and continue drifting until fuel exhaustion led to a soft-water ditching. The condition of the plane supports this theory. The wings are largely intact. The fuselage shows signs of a controlled descent rather than a catastrophic crash. The forward section is more preserved than expected, suggesting a low-impact entry into the water. There is no sign of fire or explosive decompression. This discovery doesn't just explain what happened, it rewrites the final chapter of Amelia Earhart's life. This breakthrough also reignites questions about the final moments of Earhart and her navigator Fred Noonan. Did they survive the initial ditching? Did they manage to radio for help, only to have their signals lost in the vast static of World War II-era radio traffic? Did they drift to Nikumaroro or another nearby island? Or did they remain with the aircraft, waiting for a rescue that never came? Recent analysis of radio signals from July 1937 supports the idea that Earhart was attempting to communicate after her scheduled transmission. Several amateur radio operators across the Pacific reported faint, distressed signals referencing fuel exhaustion and uncertain coordinates. At the time, these were largely dismissed. But when overlaid on the newly confirmed crash site, the transmission paths make eerie sense. She was transmitting from a location far south of where the Navy was searching. The cultural impact of Amelia Earhart's story cannot be overstated. She broke records, shattered stereotypes, and inspired generations. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. She championed women's rights, spoke publicly about equality, and defied the norms of a male-dominated profession. Her disappearance added an aura of myth to an already extraordinary life. Now, with the rediscovery of her plane, she reclaims her space not just as a mystery, but as a historic figure whose journey can be understood and honored with clarity. The site of the wreck is now under protection. International teams are coordinating to preserve the aircraft where it lies, conducting non-invasive studies to better understand its condition. There's a growing discussion about whether the plane should eventually be recovered and displayed in a museum, or whether it should remain in its underwater grave as a monument to her journey. Either way, the discovery has brought closure to a question that haunted aviation for nearly a century. The find has also sparked renewed interest in oceanic archaeology and historical aviation. Schools across the world are incorporating Earhart's story into updated curriculum. Documentaries and films are already in production, aiming to tell the story with the latest evidence. And for young girls interested in flight, engineering, and science, the story of Amelia Earhart now offers not just a cautionary tale of loss, but a full-circle narrative of ambition, courage, and eventual rediscovery. The recovery team is composed of specialists from multiple nations, united not by politics but by a shared reverence for aviation history. They've deployed specially adapted underwater drones equipped with gentle manipulators and high-definition imaging to explore every corner of the site. Every fragment of the aircraft is being carefully documented, 3D scanned, and analyzed. The hope is to gather enough information to reconstruct the exact sequence of events that occurred in Earhart's final hours. More remarkably, early sonar scans suggest that some of the cargo from the plane's storage compartments may still be intact. There are indications of sealed containers, possibly holding navigation logs, maps, personal items, or even unreleased photographs from the journey. If retrievable, these artifacts could offer an unprecedented glimpse into the mindset of Earhart and Noonan as they attempted to complete one of the most daring flights in history. Just the thought of opening a waterlogged journal or developing film left inside the aircraft stirs deep emotions in those following the discovery. Forensic teams are also considering the possibility of human remains, though the likelihood is slim due to the environmental conditions over such a long period. Still, even the smallest organic fragment could help complete the biological story of the two flyers who vanished into the great blue unknown. A DNA match would finally, unquestionably, close the loop for their families, descendants who, for decades, held on to stories, photos, and fading hopes. Among those emotionally impacted by the discovery are the living relatives of Amelia Earhart. Her great-nieces and nephews have spoken publicly about the news, expressing a mixture of grief, closure, and pride. They describe her as more than a legend. She was a daughter, a sister, a fiercely independent woman who wanted to push boundaries not for glory, but to prove what was possible. For them, this is not just the recovery of a plane, it's the return of a family legacy. This discovery is also a victory for citizen scientists. Over the years, many amateur historians and researchers contributed their time, resources, and theories to the effort. The breakthrough came not from a massive government operation, but from a team that incorporated open-source research, public archival material, and crowdsourced data analysis. It's a testament to what the global community can achieve when information is freely shared and curiosity is allowed to flourish. Of course, not everyone is convinced. As with any historic breakthrough, there are skeptics. Some argue that without bringing the plane to the surface, absolute certainty remains out of reach. Others question the timing, suggesting it's a publicity stunt or an attempt to draw attention to deep-sea exploration funding needs. But the mounting evidence, from serial numbers, structural matches, flight path alignment, to radio transmission correlations, is difficult to dispute. Interestingly, the location of the wreck lends new weight to the long-dismissed Nikomororo theory. For years, some researchers proposed that Earhart and Noonan landed on the coral atoll and survived for a time, based on scattered bones, local oral history, and relics like buttons and tools found in the area. The proximity of the wreck to that island revives those arguments. Could they have ditched near the reef and swam ashore? Could the plane have drifted to its final resting place while they perished waiting for rescue? These are now central questions in follow-up studies. There are even implications for the history of the Second World War. Some researchers wonder if classified military documents may have hinted at this location all along, buried in forgotten archives. The geopolitical landscape of the late 1930s meant that many regions were already under surveillance. Did someone know more than they let on? And if so, why was the truth hidden? Whatever the answer, the rediscovery of Amelia Earhart's aircraft is not just about solving a mystery, it's about reclaiming a chapter of human achievement. It's a reminder that our most persistent questions can eventually be answered, given time, dedication, and the right tools. It's also a reflection on risk, the kind of risk that drove Earhart to defy the odds, fly into the unknown, and attempt to circumnavigate the globe at a time when global aviation was still in its adolescence. One of the most powerful elements of this discovery is what it says about memory. For decades, Earhart's legacy was preserved by books, statues, documentaries, stamps, and museum exhibits. Her name appeared in classrooms, airports, and cultural references, often abstracted and mythologized. But now, the physical connection to her final flight has been restored. It's no longer just a story, it's a site, a structure, a series of coordinates. It's real. The wreck will also change how future generations understand the limits of technology and human ambition. At a time when we are setting our sights on Mars, building aircraft that can fly themselves, and expanding the edges of what's possible, the rediscovery of Earhart's Electra reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge is never wasted, even if it takes nearly a century to bear fruit. The expedition team has announced that over the coming months, they'll release high-resolution imagery, sonar maps, and a documentary chronicling their journey. The footage already captured is haunting. Shadows of a silver bird sleeping silently at the bottom of the ocean, cradled by silt and coral, untouched for generations. It's poetic. It's tragic. It's beautiful. There's talk of a memorial, either on land, in Washington, D.C., or at sea, near the coordinates of the wreck. Pilots have already begun proposing a flyover tribute to honor her and Noonan, with vintage and modern aircraft participating from around the world. The aviation community, long inspired by Earhart's fearlessness, sees this as a closing chapter that deserves nothing less than reverent celebration. And while the mystery is solved, the fascination remains. What truly happened during those final hours may never be fully known, but the evidence now brings us closer than ever before. Her voice, captured in the logs, her decisions, reflected in the wreck, and her spirit, unmistakably enduring through the decades, all come together in a finale both solemn and inspiring. Amelia Earhart once said, "Adventure is worthwhile in itself." In rediscovering her final adventure, we've also rediscovered the worth of perseverance, the power of history, and the unshakable human drive to understand the unknown. 88 years of silence have ended. Amelia Earhart's plane has been found. And in doing so, a door once closed by tragedy has finally been opened by truth.